I was giving a presentation as the chief of staff to a group. This New Memphis Institute asked me and Jen Andrews at Shelby Farms and one other person to be on a panel to talk to young professionals about being professionals in Memphis and moving up the ranks. And the CEO of ALSAC just happened to be in the building at the time. And it's all part of God's plan. I had to say that too. It's all part of God's plan. He just happened to be in the building and he left his backpack. He never goes, if anybody knows the CEO over there, he never leaves his backpack anywhere. Just happened to leave his backpack in his office. Well, there was a conference room right next to his office, which is where we were, a big conference room. So we've given a presentation. He comes in, he introduces himself. Hey, I'm, the CEO of ALSAC and blah, blah, blah. And we're going back and forth. I didn't think much of it. I just introduced myself and he just went on. What I found out was that he secretly was listening in the back of the conference room about what was going on. So he goes out and he talks to a couple people that I used to work with, and one person who was in the graduate program with me at the University of Memphis at the time, getting my MBA, and said, hey, I just met this guy. His name is Reggie, and he's giving this presentation over there. I want to get him over here. And I was like, well, I was contacted by the guy who went to graduate school. He texted me that night and said, hey, I heard you met my boss. I was like, what are you talking about? Like, because I didn't think about it. I didn't know what he was talking about. He said, I heard you met my boss. He wants to meet you.
Hey, everybody, I'm back with my friend, Dr. Reginald Porter Jr. It's another episode of Solar Success Stories, and I'm so excited to be talking to Dr. Porter. So Reggie and I go back. I believe we met through the Leadership Academy, which is now New Memphis Institute. 2012.
I was 2011. I think you were
know what?
After, but because we had to mix and mingle with each other so much, I think that's what it was. Yeah.
And that's when we got 40 under 40 from the Memphis Business
That's it.
Together.
Oh, yeah. I hated that picture too. I hated it. It looks so terrible.
So that's 12 years. That's 12 years, 13 years. Oh my gosh. So we've been knowing each other that long. And he is one of the most accomplished people that I know, yet one of the most humble and amazing people that I know. And I'm so excited to get into your story. So Dr. Newly earned Dr. Reginald Porter is the founder and CEO of R.S. Porter Consultancy. But he has an amazing background that has led him to this new effort, this new endeavor. And I'm so excited to get into it. Reggie, tell us a little bit about yourself.
It's funny when you do interviews, especially for jobs and things, people say, tell us a little bit about yourself. And usually you go right into what you've done in your professional career, maybe a couple of personal things. That's usually the hardest question for me because I'm trying to figure out what people want to know. But I am originally from Memphis, Tennessee, born and bred. I moved away to different parts of the country, of course, as I grew up. And then I've come back after I met my wife here and ended up being here for some time and 2006. But I'm originally from Memphis, Tennessee, grew up in South Memphis and Whitehaven. Family roots in both areas, South Haven and Whitehaven, and went to Memphis Central High School, graduated from there in 19 something. That's a different century. We're not going to talk about that. But I left there and went to the University of Tennessee in Knoxville. Got my bachelor's in mathematics, minor computer science, a master's in higher education administration. Years later, ended up with an MBA at the University of Memphis, and then now my doctorate at Jackson State University. I worked in different institutions of higher learning after leaving UT, University of Evansville, Arkansas State University, did a little bit of work out in the West Coast, and I'm forgetting somewhere, it's University of Tennessee Health Science Center. And so my career started off in higher education, left there and went to FedEx after being recruited by a couple of managers over there who needed some work to get done. And then became a board member at Shelby County Schools. We were merging the school districts together, the city and the county school districts. became the chief of staff, and then after that left to go to ALSAC, which is the fundraising awareness organization for St. Jude, and then left there and started my own consultancy. So that's a little bit about myself. I am a father and a husband. I have two daughters, Rowan and Sophie, and a wife, Sonia. And everybody is lovely over here. I have a house full of women, two dogs that are girls as well. We have Huggy and we have Primrose.
House full of girls, and your
That's
daughters
right.
are twins. Look, I thought that was so
That's
sweet
correct.
when you
That's
had
correct.
became a dad. One WAP had two of them.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Now we're done.
I
That's
love it.
it.
I love it. So Reggie, you have an amazing background, an amazing journey that I've been privileged to kind of watch some of it and be a part of it. And so I'm excited for you to share your wisdom and your knowledge and your heart and your humor
Hmm.
with the people who watch this video. So let's get into it.
All
In
right.
this program, I have what I call the SOA success system.
Mm-hmm.
It's my belief that anyone, absolutely anyone, can achieve success if they learn how to overcome obstacles, eliminate excuses, and calculate choices. They can have what I call SOA success. And that is success no matter what happens in life. And Reggie, I have been privileged to be a part of your journey and to see a lot of what has happened in your life. And I know you personally, and I can call you a friend. I know it has not always been easy for you.
Yeah.
So let's talk about how you overcome some of the obstacles to get to where you are today. Let's start with that.
Yeah, I'll go backwards and then come back. I've faced a lot of challenges from professionally, from leading one of the largest or the largest nations, mergers of educational systems to transforming organizations, being a part of teams that transform operations at FedEx and at ALSAC. But what I found, Summer, is that each one of these obstacles has provided me the opportunity to innovate myself or improve either the organization or myself. I approach obstacles a little bit differently. What I do is break things up in manageable parts. I do it subconsciously. I think about, what are the core issues that are going on right now? And then I look at potentially if I'm in an organization, what are the cross-functional teams or people I can put in a room to get together? And I do believe that, you're not supposed to do everything by yourself. In an organization, of course, you bring SMEs together and subject matter experts together and, pick their brains and get their diverse input. But, in my situation, for a lot of things, I use my network, my friends, my family, my colleagues, my church members. They are vitally important to me. It's important to have that support team. And sometimes those people are the same people. Some of my family members are my church members, they're my colleagues, and they're my friends as well. I'm an only child, but I never grew up by myself because my parents made sure I was a part of a church that was socioeconomically diverse. And so we had members who were in abject poverty, and millionaires under the same roof. And nobody felt like they were better or less than the other person. And they would often share stories. The millionaires had problems and obstacles they would go through. They would tell us as kids, we would have these things called rap sessions, and youth from all over the city would be at the church. And it was a night where we all spent the night. We're like 200, 300 kids in a gymnasium where we would go through rotations of people from the church. Again, these people from abject poverty all the way to millionaires would share their stories about how they got over their obstacles and the things they were going through. So understanding that people are going to have obstacles, you're going to have obstacles is just part of your life. That helps you out quite a bit. One of the things we don't talk about, Summer, in Memphis, especially in our generation. I know you're a lot younger than I am,
A
but
whole
we're
lot
we're
younger.
we're right. We'll say that for the record. Um, you know, we're just one generation away from segregation.
Yep.
Segregation officially, legally ended in the 60s, but I was born in the 70s, early 70s. And so we felt a lot of the things that our parents went through, not exactly what our parents went through, but we felt the ripple effects. And so as a child, I remember there were places in Memphis and Shelby County that I couldn't go to or was afraid to. And there are places right now that I'm having the opportunity to bring my parents into that they only dreamed of going to or it never had the opportunity. And people think my parents are successful. They are, but they never had the opportunity to go to some of the places that I'm now able to open doors for them. I have a family of fighters, people who were part of, voters' right movements to I have a long line of, I'm a part of a long line of educators and ministers on both sides of my family. I have a great aunt who taught me mathematics, but she was blind. People don't understand that. Like I learned how to do mathematics completely without any calculators, and ended up teaching mathematics as a senior slash graduate student at the University of Tennessee. Um, that is something that, you know, when you have somebody who's blind and can teach you mathematics and know when you're making mistakes just off that mind, you go through life a little bit differently, understanding that, you know, the things I complain about or could complain about are nothing. And going to UT was an obstacle. Being in Memphis, where it's predominantly Black, you run into, when I was a kid, especially, the only white people that I had interaction with were either teachers or people of authority. And so there wasn't a lot of interaction. Now, when I got to high school, we had some teammates, and maybe a couple of students, but my high school was predominantly Black as well. You move to East Tennessee, it's different. The vernacular is different. The demographics is different. The weather is different. I mean, everything was different, but I never been exposed to so many opportunities. The school itself, the things that people were exposed to. Summer, I even tried out for the hockey team at one point, the intramural hockey team. I went out for one day just so I could say I did it. But the opportunities were there. I even did some square dancing, time or two here or there. But I would say that, challenges are going to come, obstacles are going to be there, but they're there to provide the momentum and progress. And I like challenges. I think I heard one of your other speakers specifically talk about going to college for the first time. When I was at the University of Tennessee, I remember every other week there were race fights.
Mm.
And just to walk across campus, we had to pass by, some of the fraternity houses. And I remember, being on the back end or being a part of some of the race fights just because we couldn't walk across campus without being taunted. And so, I could have given up, but I didn't, because this was my destiny to be a part of that and understand it again. It's just an obstacle, it's not an end.
I love it. I love it. Look, when you were doing that, that was back in the 50s, right? When you
You
were
so funny. You so funny. 2050, you looking into the future.
I love it.
Got
I love it.
jokes.
And I'm glad you mentioned that though, Reggie, because some of my favorite people are my elders, and I have so much respect for elders and two generations even past us. And I think about the things that they experience, especially when it comes to racism and segregation.
Yeah.
But for you to talk about it's still something we deal with, or you dealt with 30 years ago. And then we deal with today, but it's an obstacle that can be overcome, and how you dealt
Mhm.
with it. And I
It's
appreciate you
also,
sharing
yeah,
that.
it's also a way to approach people too, Summer. A lot of people don't understand. Like we're in a place, especially in the workplace, there are 5 generations of people who are in there. You're developmentally set almost probably in your adolescence. And so you have to think about it sometimes, where people were during their adolescence and how to communicate with them and understand potentially their perspective, and bringing home the opportunity for communication across diverse mindsets. But yeah, segregation is one of those things that really set a tone of how people think about each other in the workplace as well.
But I think it's also powerful that you made the decision to go to a whole new environment. And, people see it's Tennessee, it's all Tennessee, but you're exactly right. Memphis, Tennessee is completely different from Knoxville, Tennessee. But
Completely.
you allowed yourself to experience this new, to expose yourself to this new situation that was a challenge, but also a beautiful opportunity at the same time, right?
Absolutely. It was great. It was great.
So the second part of a success system is eliminating excuses.
Mhm.
Talk about some of the excuses you had to eliminate to get to where you are today.
Well, first of all, eliminating excuses starts with accountability of yourself. I tell this story all the time to students because, of course, they see where you are now, but they don't necessarily understand where you came from. Summer, I went to Central High School. I played a couple of sports. I was okay athlete. I would say average, a little bit above average athlete. Played football and track. I wasn't Travis Hunter or anybody, but I had some scholarships, some opportunities to go to different places and go to school for free. And my parents decided, you're not taking an athletic scholarship because you won't study. It's funny. Parents are wise beyond their years. And sure enough, I got to University of Tennessee, and as I told you, it was a mix of some of the bad things with dealing with race issues and all that, um, but also supplemented with all the good things and the opportunities to get involved with activities, to get involved with sports and meet new people and all those things that I didn't go to school. I mean, I really didn't go to class. My friends and I had the opportunity to go and sit in a room of 400 students and think in our minds, we'll just rotate when who's going to class, we'll take notes. Yeah. So I ended up summer my freshman year with a 0.75 and a 0.83. And that's not a 1 point, that's not a 2 point. I had a 0.75 and a 0.83. And I knew what that meant. I was going to probably have to come home and I was going to face the wrath of my parents. But what I did was I owned that. I didn't make excuses for it. I went to talk to an advisor. Shout out to Missy Parker. She probably retired by now. But I went to Missy and I said, hey, look, here's the deal. I absolutely had the time of my life this year. I came here to school, didn't know what to expect. I thought it was just going to be classes. Because again, a lot of people I grew up with, a lot of people hadn't gone to college. And the ones that did went under adverse situations. So being a part of activities and things like that just wasn't what they did. And so I didn't have that talk about what to do when you got to school. And so I just enjoyed it. So I went to her and I told her, I said, look, I just kicked it. I had a good time. I ended up passing the 2 PEs that I had in summer. And what she did was she sat me down. She said, look, we're going to put you on academic probation, but we're going to keep you here. We're going to withdraw all of your failure classes. So everything that I failed, they put W's on. So I ended up with a 4.0 because I had my PEs, I had A's in. So I had a 4.0. I didn't have a lot of credits, but I had a 4.0.
Wow.
But she gave me that second chance. And she specifically, and has always stayed with me, she specifically said that the only reason that she did that for me is because of the way I approached her and I owned it. And I said, here's the deal. I'm not making any excuses for what I did. I'm only telling you what I did. And I'm owning that. Are there options and opportunities for me to move forward at this place because I want to stay? Excuses are just a mask of the fear of failure. I don't necessarily have a fear of failure when I approach things. Now I don't want to fail. Don't get me wrong, but I'm not gonna make excuses for it. So what I do is I take ownership and confront issues head on, and that, in my opinion, is the key for eliminating excuses.
I think that's powerful. I never would have known that, Dr. Porter.
Oh
Uh,
yeah, oh yeah. But had she not done that, I wouldn't be sitting right here, and I know
oh,
that. I know
yeah.
that. Yeah.
So that's powerful. So I'm glad you shared that too, because there's somebody out there watching this who has failed or who has not lived up to their potential and they know they have. And you could have gone many directions with that, but you
Sure.
chose to be accountable. And I think that that and seeing that turn the whole situation around, and it did. It led you to becoming Dr. Porter and having all the success that you've had in your life because of that accountability. I think that's powerful. And I also hearing this story, um, one, you being accountable, but two, somebody believing in you.
Hmm. Hmm.
Somebody believing in you and accepting your accountability and giving you a second chance. And I think
Yeah.
that's another lesson that we can all take from that, especially now that we're older and we are some on the other side of it now too, right?
And
I think
somebody
that,
who's completely different than me. That's
yeah.
another thing. I'm still having conversations with people in, I will say, their 50s and 60s who have this wall up about people who look or act different than they were or grew up differently that they did. And it's a shame because, you know, they're good and bad people all in every society. I'm trying to be careful about what I say on
Yeah.
camera, but you can't trust everybody that looks like you. And at the same time, you can't demonize everybody that doesn't look like you or
I
doesn't
think
see things the way you do.
No, I think that's powerful, and we can say it like it is because I even think about, when I came to the university in Memphis, some of as a single mom, like you said, under adverse situation
Yeah, yeah.
circumstances. some of my biggest supporters were Black people and white people though.
Right.
So, and I can, and I in my first book I name a lot of those people. And it
Mhm.
was really big for even let me go back, even before I got to the University of Memphis, just getting me to college. It was people, and I love talking about this. I have a whole lesson called Friends in my curriculum. Some were white, some were Black, some were my age, and many were in their 40s, 50s,
Older.
and my mama's age and
Yeah.
older than my mama, who I could sincerely call friend.
Yeah.
Looking out. So absolutely, we do have to get past, oh, you look like me, so you got my back, or you look like me, so we think alike. That's
Yeah.
absolutely not the case. I get some truth to it in some circumstances, but absolutely. Yeah, you sounding like the DEI expert that I know you are as well.
I was gonna say all skin folk ain't kinfolk.
Yeah, I mean, that's the truth, and that's
It
the truth.
is.
That's
It is.
whatever your skin is,
Yeah.
right?
Oh yeah.
So the third part of SOA success system is calculating choices. So you know how to overcome obstacles and eliminate excuses, and you have made some tough choices. I watched you make some of those tough choices.
Yeah.
Talk about some of the calculated choices you've made on your journey.
Well, it's there's an old Kenny Rogers song. You got to know when to hold up, when to fold up, right? Walk away, when to run. And so I think that when you're making decisions, it's kind of a balancing act of using data and tuition and looking at the impact of to yourself and to something else. But it's a little bit of luck as well. My experiences at different places, at corporate or nonprofit, I've spent a lot of time aligning my decisions to long-term goals of the organization. And I apply that to myself too. But even with that, I understand that you have to pivot when it's necessary. I have a website now, liveforthepivot.com, because I truly believe that you have to pivot because there's going to be a place potentially where you have to go to a plan B, C, or D. Things aren't necessarily going to work out the way you think they're going to, whether it's some kind of high stakes project at work or is managing donor relationships. And donor may say they want one thing, but you may find a better solution for them, utilizing other resources through quantitative data or qualitative insights, to help them make the best decisions or choices in giving their funds to support you or an organization. um I think that it's important for you to chart a path or plan, but understand that curveballs are going to come. Even when you talk about getting a degree, when I talk to students, and students like, why do I have to have a degree? I can get money, blah blah blah, X, Y, and Z. It's not necessarily that degree is going to make you smarter than the other person. It's there to make sure that there's an opportunity that opens up. The door isn't closed to you initially. So making that choice is something I talk to students about all the time. But staying in Memphis is probably my biggest choice of late summer. I went back to my doctorate for a specific reason, and I still would love the opportunity to head up a college or a university. And there have been opportunities for me to apply or do things within universities, and I've kind of turned them down specifically because my girl's on a good spot right now. My wife is close to retirement from where she is. And my choice has been I'm going to do everything in my power to stay where I am because of them and my family. My parents are aging as well. If the opportunity presents itself in such a manner that it will provide for all of us, then I'll move. But that's a tough choice and a choice I'm willing to make because, again, I said at the very beginning, it's about your support system and your network. I'm here and I'm choosing to be here in the city of Memphis because of those things. And I want to be able to still provide for the community that I'm a part of as well. I'm in, different organizations. I'm part of Shelby Farms and Peer Power and the University of Memphis Foundation Board. And yeah, I want to still contribute to the community that's giving back to me, but that is a choice. And it's a tough one at times, especially with people like me and you who are thrivers and go-getters and want to have impact broader than where we are. But I'm finding ways, even with the consultancy, to impact other areas by staying here and choosing to provide for my family in a way that's going to keep them most comfortable.
Yeah. I'm feeling it because it's powerful. And I mean, and that's even why I like doing these interviews and having these conversations, is because everything about, like, when I started my brand, so what is personal and professional. So everything in your life, it impacts you both personally and professionally. And then
Yeah.
making that professional decision because of your personal life and the people that are important to you, it's important, it's crucial. And I'm sure all of those factors also were factors in you making the transition from the different amazing positions that you've had too.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
talk about some of the decisions that you've made, and then go, I would love for you to share a little bit more about your positions that you've had and your journey and transition with some of those, if you don't mind.
Yeah, so I started off in higher education. My first position in my first transition into corporate came at FedEx because I'd worked with people in at the University of Tennessee Health Science Center, and a guy at FedEx specifically excuse me, had just come from the University of Tennessee Health Science Center, and we had the opportunity to work together. At the University of Tennessee, my role at the time was kind of being the liaison between academics and IT because I had a background in IT from the University of Tennessee, and I understood how professors would think because I was in the registrar's office. So, I was kind of liaison between the two. And there was a gentleman who approached me who used to be the webmaster. I know that's old terminology. He used to be the webmaster at UT, who went to FedEx, and he said, "Hey, my manager is looking for somebody. My manager director is looking for somebody who could specifically talk to our business partner and deal with our testing and development team. They're having an issue with people coming together and really speaking the same language." And so he recruited me over there to be a part of the FedEx testing team. And I think I saw you over there as well, over in the marketing side, the big people side. And so I left higher education to take a job. And let's go back to choices. I'm gonna talk about choices while I'm doing this too.
Sure.
Um, they doubled my salary instantly. They doubled my salary when I went over to FedEx. So I was at FedEx about 7 years, and then the 6th year I think is when we had the all call for people who wanted to be involved in education to merge the two school districts, and they asked for people to be a part of the board. At the time, my wife and my family said, "Hey, you have a passion for education. You understand the continuum after K-12. You understand what it takes to get the kids successful in college because you worked in that environment. Why don't you think about going out for the position?" So I went out for the school board. Well, at that time, the people part of the school board were in meetings. We were in meetings sometimes 2 and 3 times a week, summer from 5 p.m., 5:30 p.m. to midnight. I mean, it was pretty intense for about a year or so doing that. And so I found the passion. I started to love it even more and more, but it was taking a toll because I would get up. What people don't see is I, as a board member, as an elected board member, I would get up early in the morning, go to schools before they started, talk to parents about what was going on with the merger demerger, and then go to FedEx. And I had good bosses at FedEx who allowed me to do that. Take a little time, whether it was at being an hour late, to do that as part of my role. They felt it was important that I was in the community to do that kind of work, and I felt it was important too. Well, the superintendent, we were going through superintendent changes, and the superintendent at the time felt like, as a board member, I was one person that was kind of even keel. I would approach things again, as to my experience at the University of Tennessee, understanding that people with diverse backgrounds aren't necessarily bad people, making decisions around what's best for all students, not just one segment, but then bringing to the attention of those issues, those students who are less fortunate, right, and didn't have the opportunity. So he approached me and said, "Hey, I would like you to be my chief of staff. I think I would like you to step down from politics as a board member, leave your job at FedEx, and come here and be my chief of staff." Well, I had a long talk with the family. Again, they doubled my salary. I was young, and I was having two babies coming. And so I ended up taking a role at the Shelby County Schools at the time. It was still, yeah, we were unified Shelby County Schools, as the chief of staff. From that position, I had the opportunity to learn a lot of different roles because merging those two districts, I had to understand operations, communications, HR, government relations. All of those areas reported to me, board and policy. That was a very interesting learning experience, Summer. I would tell you another thing I learned about that too is that people love you when they love you, and they don't love you when they think that you're different than what they have in their minds. I was the same person as a board member, but once I transitioned into administration, some people on the board looked at me differently. I was the same person that just sat with them the night before, but when I switched to administration, now I'm part of administration and I can't understand or talk to them as board members. It took a long time to get to the point where there was some trust rebuilt, but it got there because I again looked from their vantage point and I could meet them where they were. I was given a presentation as the chief of staff to a group. This New Memphis Institute asked me and Jen Andrews at Shelby Farms and one other person to be on a panel to talk to young professionals about being professionals in Memphis and moving up the ranks. And the CEO of ALSAC just happened to be in the building at the time. And it's all part of God's plan. I had to say that too. It's all part of God's plan. He just happened to be in the building and he left his backpack. He never goes, if anybody knows the CEO over there, he never leaves his backpack anywhere. Just happened to leave his backpack in his office. Well, there was a conference room right next to his office, which is where we were, a big conference room. So we've given a presentation. He comes in, he introduces himself. Hey, I'm, the CEO of ALSAC and blah, blah, blah. And we're going back and forth. I didn't think much of it. I just introduced myself and he just went on. What I found out was that he secretly was listening in the back of the conference room about what was going on. So he goes out and he talks to a couple people that I used to work with, and one person who was in the graduate program with me at the University of Memphis at the time, getting my MBA, and said, "Hey, I just met this guy. His name is Reggie, and he's giving this presentation over there. I want to get him over here." And I was like, uh, well, I was contacted by the guy who went to graduate school. He texted me that night and said, "Hey, I heard you met my boss." I was like, "What are you talking about?" Like, because I didn't think about it. I didn't know what he was talking about. He said, "I heard you met my boss. He wants to meet you." And so I got a text the next day from a lovely person named Emily Greer that said, "Hey, my boss wants to meet you." And so I went over just to meet, just to talk. Here's my naivete: as old and seasoned as I wasn't even thinking it's an interview. So I just went to go talk to him. He said he had 20 minutes. Summer, 20 minutes went by. Secretary knocks or the admin knocks on the door. He waves them off. 20 more minutes comes by, he waves them off. 20 more minutes comes by. Literally, we stayed in there an hour talking. Um, two more times like that, and almost 26 interviews later, in my mind, it's conversations. 26 interviews later, I ended up going to ALSAC, which is an absolutely wonderful place. It's a phenomenal place. ALSAC St. Jude, again, it's the fundraising awareness organization for St. Jude, which is absolutely amazing. Um, I ended up being the chief of staff, just as a placeholder because that's the only position he had that he didn't have to get approved by the board. And so from there, I had opportunities, within the organization to work with transformation, work with a little bit of DEI work with operations, and just the gamut. And then worked in development. It was an excellent opportunity. But with all things, you got to figure out when it's time to move on. So there came a time. I was going back to school to get my doctorate. I was, wrapping things up there, and it was time to transition. And so I made the leap. Didn't necessarily know exactly what I was going to do. Again, you and I talking, and again, the choice to stay here in Memphis. There were opportunities to go to places, but I chose to stay here. So I opened up my LLC almost immediately, and got in touch with some people that I knew, and they started referring other people. And here I am. I'm the CEO of my own foundation, and I'm at this point. You and I talk about the fact that being an entrepreneur is tough. I'm always open to the opportunity of looking at going back into an institution, but for now, it's done well. I've had the opportunity to spend time with my family a little bit more, and still maintain and move forward. But it's about choices and making sure that you don't make excuses for anything you do, and you take the reins and accountability for any step that you make.
So I appreciate you sharing all of that, and it's amazing because in it are your choices. And the other thing that I hear though that I think is important especially for the young people who watch this, and if they as they think about their careers, is not only the choices that you make, but the things that you do that put you in the position to be ready for the
Mhm.
opportunity. What's the quote?
Right.
Success is when preparation meets opportunity.
Right.
And so you did the things and you were the person and you had the character. So these opportunities came to you and you were already prepared for them. And you hear the double the salary, they double my salary. And you didn't even go looking for it. And you didn't even have to go looking for it. I think that's a beautiful lesson for somebody watching this to take, is to do the work and do, have the heart for the work and do a good job. You were working hard.
Yeah.
I hear what you said about, I'm picturing you going to the schools before going to work at FedEx and then
Yeah.
going to
Yeah.
the board meetings afterwards. I think that's amazing. So Reggie, you just exemplified what a so a success man is. You know how to overcome obstacles, you know how to eliminate excuses, and you know how to calculate choices and put yourself in the position so that you have choices,
Yeah.
right? So, though, what is your personal definition of success? How do you define success now?
I would tell you that's something I'm still working on. I think that's but I think that's good because I think it moves a little bit. Let me go back one thing just for a second and talk about a failure too, because I think it's important. It just clicked my head. My transition from higher education to well, from Arkansas State. I was at Arkansas State and then I went to the University of Memphis. Let me explain this though. There was a gap in there where I decided I wanted to jump on out. There was a startup company. The guy asked me to come and he was going to double my salary at the time. And so I jumped out and left because I was upset at where I was at the institution. I wanted to move up quicker than I needed to. And now looking back, it wasn't time for me to move. But in my head, I was like, I deserve to get more. So I decided to jump on out there for the money. Well, the company folded in less than a month or less than
Mhm.
2 months, something like that, Summer. And I ended up back at I ended up at FedEx, not back because it was my first time. I ended up FedEx throwing boxes with a
Mm.
master's degree for a while. And that experience gave me the opportunity again to understand a whole different facet of worker in the city. So that when I was at Shelby County Schools, I could effectively make policy and changes, understanding that everybody doesn't have a middle class family. And I understand what the third shift worker is like and how parents have obstacles or barriers to come meet their students and meet the needs of their kids. Anyway, so success. I would say for me, success is rooted in impact and what I can do, both personally and professionally. Again, you've heard that the places I worked in the past, I strategically made sure that I was part of projects or align myself with people who were going to impact whatever we were doing, whether it was a project for an institution or it was building something up in the community. I think that as a leader, success is about empowering others. And so if you look at my resume, you'll see I've made sure that I've been a part of making sure that I was a part of organizations that um, talked about bringing people together, fostering inclusive environments, um, trying to figure out how to continue to thrive long together and improve things, not just for me, but for what's coming behind me. I want to make sure that my kids understand the impact of the things that I've done. And in my mind, that's success. I was just on a call. A client called me and I told them my girls were in the car. I was picking them up from school and we were driving. And they happened to listen to the phone call. And it's funny that, kids they pick up everything. They're little sponges. And so at the end of the call, they said, "Wow, Dad, they really listened to you. Like you really helped them feel better." We could tell they were stressed out in the beginning, and by the end of the conversation, "That's what you do for work." I was like, "Yeah," but they saw that just even from conversations, there was an impact to make somebody else feel better or the organization get better. Um, I want to be my dream job, Summer, is just to be this ultra philanthropist where I can just give money away, but I don't have that right now. The money I give away now, we kind of decided that some of the things that we're putting our name on in donations, we're going to put our girls' names on. So if you see something that says Rowan and Sophie Porter, yeah, I gave the money, but I'm putting it in their names so they understand the impact that they're giving back or we're giving back to the community. And as they grow, they talk to their kids or talk to their friends, they can tell them, hey, my parents gave money to this place, blah, 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 X, Y, and Z. And just that little seed in my mind is a little bit to help to grow the philanthropy even more in Memphis at a younger age for my kids, but also the people that they deal with. So success for me is about impact mostly.
That's powerful. I love it. And I'm thinking back to the power in the story that you went back and told about the story of the failure, because I think that's important. And what you got out of it, because I even think about the seasons that I've had in my life, even on my entrepreneurial journey, is like,
Yeah,
okay, God, I've been through this before. Why am I back here?
yeah,
And
yeah.
I was like, you know what? What it did for you and what it did for me too, it helped you understand the people that you serve better.
That's correct. That's correct. It
And I
did.
think,
Absolutely.
yeah, it just made you better at what you do.
Yeah,
And so I think that, that's important for us to look at our failures in and throughout our lives to say, okay, what is it I'm supposed to learn from this? And what am I supposed to get from that? And then to be thankful for it. And
that's
then to
right.
be thankful for it because it made you so much better. And I love your definition of success. And I love that little tip. I think that was a tip because I'm like, I'm still there. I need to start doing that too. Um, and to plant that seed for your daughters. And that's a
Yeah,
beautiful thing. I'm speaking as a parent for your children to see the impact that you make, to see it
yeah.
directly and how it's a subtle thing. It's just a conversation and
Hmm.
how that impacted people. I love it, Reggie. Okay, I have one last
Well,
question
thank
for
you. I
you.
appreciate that.
Yeah, I love every bit of this. This is gonna really bless some people. It's already blessing me. One last question. What's one piece of advice? Now you've already dropped a lot of nuggets. You've given a whole lot of great advice, but what's one
Yeah.
piece of advice you would give someone watching this and they're like, I want to be successful, whatever it is that they want to do, but they run into obstacles as we
Yeah.
do in
Yeah.
life. What's one piece of advice that you would give?
I would say this, and it's interesting as you asked me this question because I was telling somebody the other day, my skill set is so varied, but the one thing that I do pretty well is when people talk to me, I give a lot of advice. So I even thought about going back and get another degree, Summer, and become a therapist. No, I'm just,
I was like,
but
can I
I,
plan?
but I,
Yeah.
right, right. But I tell never stop learning and embrace change, especially in a technological era. People don't realize how much technology is changing things. Technology is changing people's mental states. But at some point, you can't be stuck and rigid in your old ways. You're going to have to either learn to move forward, or in this case, you got to learn to just to stay where you are. Um, but you got to embrace change. The world is not going to be what it used to be. It's going to always evolve and change. So if I had advice for people, I would say those two things: never stop learning and embrace change.
I love it. I love it. Reggie, well, I thank you so much for
No, thank you. I appreciate it. I appreciate it for sure.
I thank you for being my friend. I thank you for all the wisdom that you've shared. And I just thank you for being an amazing person. And yeah, we got to shout out the brothers of Omega Sci-Fi representing.
Peace. Got to. You got to do it. You got to do it.
All right. Thanks, Reggie. Love you, my friend.
Thanks, Tom. I love you too. Take care now.